Happy Sunday, everyone, especially if you're an Arsenal fan and a Manchester City fan, but not so much if you are a Liverpool fan. Arsenal 3, Liverpool 1. Mark Donaldson alongside Luis Miguel Echegaray will be joined momentarily by Mark Ogden from the Emirates. What a strange, crazy game that was. Arsenal deserved the 3 points. Manchester City will be happy with it. The gap at the top is now 2 points, but there's so many places we could start with this one. Arsenal dominant in the first half, Luis Miguel, but they don't go in ahead at the break, having scored through Saka because of some crazy defending. I mean, what happened in this game with the defending specifically at that end of the field?
Yeah, I think strange is a good place to start, MD. I think the first half, Arsenal were in almost complete control. Their XG almost doubled Liverpool's. They were just creating chances after chances. Gabriel Martinelli was absolutely on top form throughout. Bukayo Saka as well. Declan Rice looked formidable. Liverpool had no chance. In fact, 0 shots on target. And yet, they equalized just before the break, and it remains 1-0. And obviously at the break, Jurgen Klopp gives Liverpool players a big yelling to, and Liverpool improve in the second. Darwin Nunez comes on and a few other additions, but yet Arsenal maintain their solidity. And of course, there's that ridiculous mishap, and that's where you mentioned the defensive issues. Probably the worst I've ever seen Virgil van Dijk and Alisson play together in a game. And it wasn't just because of that horrible goal they conceded, which I think they share 50% of the blame. But I think defensively, there were a lot of mistakes from Liverpool's side. They never really got into the game. They never really threatened Arsenal as much as they could have. And Arsenal deservedly win, MD, and it's a massive win. Because if they had lost, then I would have said it's bye-bye title hopes, I think.
Yeah, it would have been 8 points adrift of leaders Liverpool if they'd lost. Now they're just 2 points behind. Let's head to the Emirates Live with Mark Ogden. Obviously, the story here, Oggy, is that Arsenal are very much in this title race with a much-needed win. We spoke on Friday on ESPN FC about how it was probably a bigger game for Arsenal. But what are the subheadings to your match report that you are either writing or have written here? Because there was a lot going on today.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you're right. Arsenal had to win this game to stay in the title race, even though it wouldn't have cast them too far off the pace. I think if Liverpool had won, it would have been, the points gap would have been yawning away. So for me, it was a strange game, like you say. It was, second half, you're looking at Arsenal thinking they need somebody to make something happen, and it didn't look like they would. But then the person who made it happen was Virgil van Dijk and Alisson, because it was a mistake at the Liverpool end. So, I think generally both teams lack something today. I think Liverpool certainly were missing Dominic Szoboszlai, who has a recurrence of his hamstring problem, so he didn't make the trip from Liverpool. He played against Chelsea, felt something. They really missed him in midfield, really missed his energy. And obviously Conor Bradley was missing today. He's had a family bereavement. So Liverpool just didn't look as sharp as we were against Chelsea. Obviously Mo Salah's still out, but it looked like they were going to get away with it. It looked like second half they came back and they were going to give Arsenal a bit of a beating, I thought, at one point, because the way they started the second half of Liverpool, I thought this was a bad news for Arsenal, but Arsenal kept in it and they got back in it on the back of a mistake, but they capitalised. So somebody just walked into the press room now, was joking away, said, have they given Arsenal the trophy? Because the celebrations at the Emirates after the game, you would think they just won the league today, but I think that it's a little bit churlish. I think the reality is they've beaten Man City at home now, they've beaten Liverpool at home, and even though they're not playing particularly well, they've beaten their 2 biggest rivals at home, and it will give them real confidence that they can win the next 2. I think the next 2 away games are West Ham and Burnley. Win those, and they've got a real chance of pushing for the title. But there's this a nagging doubt in my mind that Arsenal that are believable. I just don't think that they've got that depth. I don't think they've got the belief within the squad that they can really go all the way. I think, and that is because Man City. I think Man City are that kind of they scare teams in title races because they know what Man City can do. Man City can win 15, 20 games on the bounce, and I think that's the nagging doubt in everybody's mind that no matter how well they do, how many wins they get, Man City will go past them anyway.
Well, City, if they win the 2 games at hand, are now top. Just going back to that person in the press room, there's always one, isn't there? There's always one Grumperson. There's always one that comes in. Exactly. There's always one that comes into a party and says, no alcohol, keep the noise down as well. I understand it. Look, they had to, I say have to win. And Luis Miguel said even at 8 points, they're still in the title race. That was a game they needed to win more than Liverpool. So surely they should be allowed to celebrate, because it wasn't a game of great quality. I thought Arsenal totally controlled the first half, but it wasn't a game you look back on and go, that was just brilliant, because of these mistakes that were made by both teams, Oggy.
Absolutely. I think we can listen, you've got to put significance on the result, because the result is a big one. It gets Arsenal right back in the title race. But I think you're right. If you put too much significance on the performances, I think it's wrong. I think both teams were below the best today. They both made mistakes. They both looked like they were vulnerable. But Arsenal came out on top and won 3-1. And all of a sudden, the narrative completely changes. They've beaten Liverpool 3-1. Liverpool haven't lost in the league since they played Tottenham away in September. So that kind of overshadows all of the negative side of the game for Arsenal. And, you know, it's rightly so in many ways, because it's all about winning games, isn't it? But I do think that we have to be realistic. As important as these points are for Arsenal today, there were still enough issues in that team today which you're thinking they're not going to see it a title race. They're just not. And maybe that's because Man City have kind of conditioned us all now to realise that second half of the season they come strong and they blow teams away. They've got Brentford Monday night. You know, they win that game, they're really on the tails of both Arsenal and Liverpool. And I think that's the problem. I think you take Man City out of the equation, you've got a great title race with Man City in it. It's still a very good title race, but I think we all know how it's going to end.
LME, how many times have, whether it's Oggy, whether it's James, whoever it is, you, Stevie, Shaka, Craig, talked about Arsenal getting a goal scorer? Now, no Gabriel Jesus today, so Kai Havertz is an interesting one, because of the way that he plays, he kind of attracts defenders to come out, maybe leave gaps, but he's not really a great finisher in an Arsenal jersey. It might come, but thankfully for Arsenal, the deflection off goalkeeper Alisson led to Saka getting the opening goal. What's your thoughts about Kai Havertz, Luis Miguel?
I guess I'll say what Miguel Arteta told me last summer, which is towards the perils of what you were talking about. Kai Havertz is not there to be their clinical goal scorer. Kai Havertz is there to attract attention of defenders, create movement, create spaces, and hopefully finish some goals or create some for other teammates. But he will never be that natural number 9 that they want. In fact, they don't have one. Gabriel Jesus, I'm a big fan of his. He's done a lot in terms of what Brazilians have done in the Premier League, but he is not a natural finisher. He has said it himself, and I've said it from day one, and like you said, so has everybody else. Arsenal need a clinical goal scorer. Now, can they win the Premier League without one? Well, they're going to have to, because the window is closed, and they need to rely, as you mentioned, on that trio, specifically Gabriel Martinelli. And by the way, when Leandro Trossard came on, he gave a different dimension, fantastic solo goal. So there's issues there. Now, the issue that I have, and I do share a little bit of what Oggy's talking about, which is fantastic victory, very important victory, but I do worry a little bit when the Champions League returns and other responsibilities return for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, that they're going to have to win some ugly games. And sometimes you need a clinical finisher to just make it that ugly 1-0. So today was a much needed victory for Arsenal. Now, Oggy, again, completely agree. Man City, now that they're reaching, once again, they're close to perfection, everybody else has to do the same. And that's very difficult when you don't have a clinical finisher. So that's my only worry. But what I will say is that the likes of Kai Havertz, the likes of Leandro Trossard, Martinelli, who was fantastic, and Saka, we'll have to see if he's okay because he came off early in that game. They can add dimensions. And when Gabriel Jesus comes back, but you need a clinical finisher, I truly believe, to be the ultimate champion and beat somebody who is almost perfect, if not perfect, like Manchester City.